The money's not going to be fantastic yet, but it's got to get some time to get things underway. And I think the USL right now is kind of like in a roadblock or a hurdle of like, how do we take that next step to elevate our league? Look, we have a very good foundation worth of fans and money and money flow and the game and the teams. Like, we have a really good foundation. But now, how do we take that next step to, what, let's maybe rival the MLS a little bit? How do we take some of their fans and convert them into USL fans? That's why, you see a lot of teams like a Detroit City FC or Louisville have teams where MLS sides, don't reside in. Like, yeah, I'm sure there's a couple overlaps, but for the most part and the majority, a lot of these USL sides are in areas where MLS teams aren't there. So so that's a good start. And you can already see, like, this. Obviously, if these teams are building multi-million-dollar stadiums, something's going right. But now, how do we rival that with the MLS? And the first thing you do is make sure your product is good. You got to make sure your players are happy, because without the players and the product, no one's going to watch your thing. No one's going to watch. It's like the podcast here. If I don't give you guys entertainment or information that's worthy, no one's going to watch it. And then everyone gets mad, and then we don't do a podcast anymore if no one's watching or no audience is tuning in. So obviously, thank you for everyone tuning in. But yeah, you got to make sure your product's happy. So you got to make sure the players are happy. And this is just a couple of quotes I found today. This will be the first one, yeah, that I saw from the USL Players Association. With 1 week until kickoff of the 2026 season, United Soccer League Players Association players remained without a new collective bargaining agreement following 547 days of negotiations with the USL and its USL championship clubs. This week, around 90% of the player pool participated in a vote on the league's latest proposal. Approximately 90% of the players rejected it and authorized the player-led bargaining committee to take all necessary steps, including calling a strike if negotiations fail to produce a satisfactory agreement. And then this will be the last one. Players are preparing for the start of the championship season while continuing to push for an agreement that reflects true professional standards. Players are unified in their demand for a fair deal that guarantees basic protections, safe working conditions, and standards that professional athletes deserve. So the biggest thing, obviously, seems to be the professionalism and, like, making sure you're playing in state-of-the-art facilities. Maybe you have the proper training. I mean, look, these players are putting their bodies on line every single day, whether that's in training, whether that's in game. And you want to make sure, when you're done playing soccer, you can still function normally as a human being, making sure you can still walk around the house, get up and down the stairs, be a good dad, if need be a good family member. So I get that, but again, I still don't think the USL is quite there yet in terms of state of the art of everything, because, like, you look at high school football, and I think high school football stadiums and programs might have better facilities than these USL clubs. But again, they're starting to get there. They're starting to build that, but it's going to take time, and some of these players might not see that yet. But I understand their frustration. There's the new CBA agreement expired back in 25, so the end of last season or the start of last season. Played with it because obviously these players want to play, and I don't really know if the players are necessarily in a spot to all hold out, I guess. Maybe now after, this amount of time, it's like, all right, it's getting kind of ridiculous. And it's also worth mentioning about the whole pro-rel situation that this goes into effect in 2028. And you kind of need everyone to be on board in order to get, what am I looking for? You need to get everyone on board for promotion relegation, because these owners aren't going to put up with that. They're not, because how do you go to a owner of a club and tell them, after so many years of doing this, because there's no risk of going down now, and these owners are getting, like, they know how much money they're then getting, because if you're staying in one league, you know how much money you're getting, prize money, broadcasting money. We all know that. That's why the MLS clubs, I don't think the owners will ever agree on promotion relegation, because then you're losing money. Like, how can you go up to a multi-hundred million dollar owner and tell him, yeah, you might have relegation now and you might lose a lot of money? Like, you can't do that now. It's too late in the game for that. But not too late in the game yet for USL, but those clubs that it's like, well, what do they do? It's you're now going to tell them there's promotion and relegation. You're now going to tell them that after so many years of, we didn't have that, and so that's something to keep an eye out for. And you got to have that without the agreement with the players and whatever in the league. You're not going to get that. You're not going to get that promotion relegation, which a lot of American soccer fans have been harping about for years, just because of the European game. And I like promotion relegation. I think it eliminates things that in the American sports sphere, like basketball, that people don't like in terms of tanking, and every single game matters in that aspect. But that's just American sports. We don't have promotion relegation. There's not an issue with it, but we just don't have that. But these players, I see exactly what they want. They are unified together. They're upset with some of the demands, and they might also see the numbers of, wow, the league is really profiting, and we're the reason because of that. Because without us, you guys don't have money. You guys don't have a league. You guys don't have TV rights. You guys don't have anything, and that's completely fair. But at the same time, USL could also be like to these players, well, you guys aren't good enough for MLS. You guys aren't good enough to go overseas, and anything less, in the leagues around the country, you guys aren't playing in, because it's going to be less money. It's going to be worse conditions. It's going to be less training environments, less professionalism, quote unquote. So this is going to be your best spot. So each side, I can see what cards they hold, and it's going to be interesting to see, obviously, how it all plays out. But these USL players, it's going to be big, and it's going to be something you got to monitor throughout the whole season, because if these players are just going to stop a minute in the first minute of a half, what stops them from sitting out, getting out there, obviously, and then standing and not playing for 45 minutes? What's stopping them from not playing the whole game? Because at that point, then the fans are going to start getting pissed, and then all the pressure is going to go back on the USL Championship and the USL higher-ups, because now the fans are pissed. The people that are coming to our games, spending their hard-earned money to watch our product and go to these games and spend a night out with family or whatever it is, then everything's going to get dialed up. So I think that the way that the USL players are going after it, I think, is a smart way. I think you still play the game, but you still kind of have the elements of a little bit of a strike, because you still are, I'm sure, want to improve yourselves and improve your game of, eventually making it to a higher level. Maybe that is an MLS club. Maybe you get bought overseas and play overseas, or maybe go to South America. I don't know what exactly, some of these players' goals are, but I'm sure they want to better themselves and better their soccer career and play at the highest. They're all competitors. They all want to play at the highest level, and I don't blame them for that. But I think if they're doing it the right way, I think they are, because they're still playing the games, and they're just sitting out for a little bit. But that's just an interesting, thing to monitor, especially in the U.S. soccer game. Some of this might get overshadowed this summer just because of the whole World Cup and that whole fiasco. And rightfully so. It's the World Cup, man. It's the greatest tournament in all of sports. Maybe behind March Madness. I think March Madness is pretty sick as well. I just like the games in the middle of the day.